What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 4 of the Fausto Sports Podcast. I am your host, Wallo Fausto, and today's episode, we are going to be talking about the third and final of my favorite sports to talk about, which I will be only talking about in this series, just basically 3 sports, as I said before, and it is none other than combat sports, more specifically boxing and MMA, because those are the 2 combat sports that are pretty much my favorites, and the 2 combat sports that I am like interested in the most, and I follow a lot on it. I like to watch the fights, and so let's get straight into it. Let's get into it. So let's see here. So what is boxing and MMA? So for those of you that don't know what boxing and MMA is, pretty much is they're not the same. Boxing and MMA are not the same. So with boxing, of course, to just, get the basics of it to understand, boxing, you have gloves like that in the background there and my little setup. Those are, you wear boxing gloves, in which basically they cover your entire hand, your entire fists, wrists, whatever, everything like that. And they fight in a square ring, is what it's called, a square ring. And then meanwhile, MMA, mixed martial arts, it is more than just boxing. There's, boxing is part of MMA, but it's called mixed martial arts for a reason. So boxing, you got jiu-jitsu, wrestling, Muay Thai. All of it is combined into this one combat sports series, called MMA. And of course, the most notable one is UFC. That is like the biggest, and the biggest right now. Pretty much UFC is one of the biggest combat sports organizations, promoter, out there in the world right now. And I'm sure everyone knows or has at least heard of the UFC. But anyway, so that's kind of like the gist of it, of what boxing and MMA is. So in these sports, in boxing and MMA, both men and women can compete in this sport. And not just boxing, but also in MMA. But not only that, but not MMA, but boxing is an Olympic sport. Boxing is in the Olympics, ladies and gentlemen, and it's been around for a while now. It's a huge, sport when it comes to the Olympics. A lot of people like to watch it because boxing in the Olympics, pros, like professional fighters, they cannot fight in the Olympics. It is only amateurs. Amateur fighters are the only fighters that are allowed to compete in the Olympics. And I believe it was in Rio, actually, Rio of 2016. They announced that boxers that are competing in the Olympics, they don't need to wear headgear anymore. No more headgear. And that's a big thing when it comes to amateur fighters or amateur boxers, because amateur boxers, outside of the Olympics or whatever, they have to wear headgear while they fight. So amateur, or like I guess I'll call them pro amateur boxers, whenever they are fighting, they have to wear headgear because they are not a pro yet. So they have to wear headgear. And in the Olympics, it used to be where these fighters had to wear headgear, but not no more. Now these amateur fighters are without any headgear, and are now fighting to try to win a gold medal. So to better understand how the different sports works, like I said, so with boxing, like I said, they are held within a square ring. There are 3 judges that score each of the fights. They may not be the same judges every single fight, but no matter what, it is always going to be 3 judges scoring these boxing matches or these boxing fights. And then these fights, they could last from either 4 rounds or 12 rounds, and each round is approximately 3 minutes long for the men, but sometimes it'll also be 2 minutes for women fighters. But depending on the experience of the fighters, that depends on how many rounds they fight. So say it's like your first ever pro boxing match or pro boxing fight, they may put you in a fight with only just 4 rounds because this is your first ever pro boxing, experience, your debut basically as a pro boxer. So they're not going to put you in a match where it's immediately 12 rounds, because then, you'll probably be gassed barely by the fourth. But usually, championship fights or main event fights in boxing, those go for 12 rounds, 12 3-minute rounds. And I mean, I train in boxing, shout out to Rise Combat Sports. And I mean, hey, I've done some boxing training over there with them. I've done some boxing training here at home. 3 minutes in boxing, it feels like the longest 3 minutes of your life. I'm not kidding. Like, it feels so long just trying to punch nonstop almost for 3 minutes straight. It just gasses you out. It is tiring, exhausting, huge cardio, huge endurance. It takes a lot out of you. So honestly, boxers especially, I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to them, the training and everything that it takes to, stay in shape, to get even in shape for, to fight, to compete in this sport. It is insane. It is totally insane. And so, yeah, big shout out to like every boxer out there in the world, And then in the world of MMA, mixed martial arts, MMA fights are held usually in an octagon ring or maybe a circle ring. And honestly, all just depends on like the promoter or like the organization that hosts MMA fights, because like I said, for example, UFC, they have their fights in an octagon ring. And then there's also Bellator, who their fighters fight in a complete circle ring. Or another example, bare knuckle boxing. I'm sure some of you people have heard of it, bare knuckle boxing. They fight in a circle ring, like close quarter combat sports. So it all just depends. It all just depends really. But typically, like I said, when people hear MMA, they think of immediately off the top of their head UFC, and they think of the octagon ring. So that's pretty much in that. And then again, in MMA, there are 3 judges that score the fights. And then fights can be from 3 to 5 rounds, and each round is approximately around 5 minutes. Or, well, it is 5 minutes in the UFC. Each round is 5 minutes. So, yeah, again, like 5 minutes of just, nonstop, possibly just kicking, punching, wrestling on the ground. It takes a lot out of the human body to be able to withstand that, to be able to do that. So, I mean, big ups to any of you, fighters out there, fighting in the MMA world, training for it. Like, it really, like, I mean, and honestly, like, makes me want to, start fighting, I mean, my mom doesn't want me to fight, but anyways, we don't need, but it really is like I said, like a high performance sport. Like, it takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot out of your body, your muscles, not just physically, but also mentally, to be prepared for something like this, to be able to step into a ring knowing that, hey, I'm probably going to get hit by someone, but this is what I signed up for, this is what I prepared myself for, this is what I trained for. So, a big ups, to all the fighters out there in the fighting world. So, in boxing and also in MMA, there is what's called weight classes, because you can't just, fight someone who is like, one guy is, 155 pounds and he's fighting someone who is, 225 pounds, like, you just can't have that. It's unfair, because obviously the bigger guy, the more, weight guy, he's going to have, more muscle mass. He's going to have more power in his body. So in boxing, the smallest weight class there is called the minimum weight. And that is at around the 105-pound mark. And then after that, you have the light flyweight class, which is around 108 pounds. Then after that, you have the flyweight class, which is 112 pounds. After that, you have the super flyweight, which is around 115 pounds. Then you have the bantamweight, which is around 118 pounds. After that, you have the super bantamweight, which is approximately around 122 pounds. And I mean, ladies and gentlemen, believe me, there is a lot. I mean, a lot of weight classes in boxing than when it comes to MMA. With MMA, it is easy. It's much simpler for the weight classes. In boxing, there is a weight class for every single like weight that you could possibly think of. I mean, there's just so many of them, and like I said, like I mean, you have flyweight and then super flyweight. It's like, why not just put them together? You know, it's like I could never understand why they did that in boxing, but I mean, there are those people out there in the world in which they are most comfortable in like a certain like weight, you know, like I'm comfortable around like, you know, let's just say a fighter's comfortable around, you know, 120 pounds and they just want to stay at 120. So, you know, they're probably going to be like in the super bantamweight class or something like that, you know. But anyway, so after super bantamweight, then you have the featherweight class, which is around 126 pounds. Then you have the then you have the super featherweight. Did I say lightweight? I think I meant to say featherweight. Featherweight's 126 pounds. Then you have the super featherweight class, which is around 130 pounds. Then after that, you have the lightweights, which is around 135 pounds. You have the super lightweights after that, which is around 140 pounds. The welterweight class, 147 pounds. The super welterweight class, 154 pounds. Then you have the middleweight class after that, which is 160 pounds. The super middleweight class after that, which is around 168 pounds. Then you have your light heavyweight weight class, which is at approximately around 175 pounds. Then you have your cruiserweight after that, cruiserweight class, which is at around 200 pounds. And then you have your heavyweight class, which is, they say, around 220, you know, up, basically. That's basically, once you're in a heavyweight class, then it's, you know, pretty much like it doesn't matter, you know, if you're 220 or 250, like at that point it's like, okay, you're a heavyweight, like you two are just gonna fight each other no matter what. So I mean, yeah, but that is the boxing weight classes. And now in boxing, depending on what weight class you're in, I believe from super featherweight and below, boxers have to wear 8-ounce gloves when they fight in the ring. And then from, I believe it's from lightweight class and up, boxers have to wear 10-ounce gloves when they fight. For example, the gloves you see, you know, behind me in the background, those are 16-ounce gloves, you know, a lot heavier glove. But heavier gloves are mostly used for training. Just so that it gives, you know, fighters, you know, or boxers, whatever, you know, that cardio and conditioning when it comes to training. So that way, when they, you know, put on the smaller gloves, you know, the more lighter gloves, you know, it's not as, you know, not as heavy of a glove, you know, you're not wasting more energy when throwing a punch. So you're able to last longer, you know, in a fight. But with those gloves, you know, the 16 ouncers and, you know, 14 ouncer gloves and all that stuff like that, those are used for training. You know, they're heavier and they're supposed to, you know, help you with conditioning, you know, cardio, building up your endurance when it comes to, you know, fighting. Now moving on, then we have the weight classes for MMA. And I'm telling you right now, watch, you're gonna see a difference in the weight classes. So in boxing, there's like what? Let's see, how many weight classes are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different weight classes in boxing. Okay, 17. Okay, now pay attention to this. Now pay attention to MMA. So we got 17 in boxing, right? Okay, so weight classes in MMA. You have your strawweight division, and the strawweight division is mostly for the women fighters. So you have your strawweight division, which is around 115 pounds. Okay, then after that you have your flyweight division, which is around 125 pounds. Then you have your bantamweight division after that, which is around 135 pounds. Then after that you have your featherweight class, which is around 145 pounds. Then after that, you have your lightweight division, lightweight class, which is around 155 pounds. Then after that, you have your welterweight class, which is around 170 pounds. After that, you have your middleweight class, which is around 185 pounds. After that, you have your light heavyweight class, which is at around 205 pounds. And then after that, you have your heavyweight class, which is around 265 pounds and up. And that's it. That's all the classes there is in MMA. So you have 17 in boxing, and now let's see here. So 17 in boxing, and then compare that to MMA. So MMA, you have only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. Basically, almost half of the weight classes in MMA compared to boxing. I mean, it makes life a little bit easier if you follow the sport of MMA, because especially in the UFC, because it's like, okay, you can kind of keep track of who each champion is in each division, and then not only that, but like, so in boxing there is so many belts out there when it comes to boxing. I mean, so many belts. I mean, I don't know if you guys have, like, for example, like, let's say, for example, a boxer, Saul Canelo Alvarez. Like, if you've seen him, if you've seen one of his fights recently, and you see him, with all of his belts, all around, his, like, arms and stuff like that. I mean, does it look cool? Does it look impressive? I mean, yes, absolutely. I mean, come on now. I mean, a fighter holding that many belts, like, you got it. I mean, you could tell right then and there, like, he's good. Like, he's really good. He's the champ. But then, you think about it, and then you're like, okay, then, well, like, one belt represents, the world boxing champion. And then another belt represents, like, the United boxing champion, or, like, Europe boxing champion, So there's, like, so many different, like, belts for boxing for, like, each different, like, maybe, division, or, the weight class, or, even, like, I don't know, like the different, like continents, or different, like, region boxing champions, there's just so many out there, like, you just can't keep track of them sometimes. And then meanwhile, when it comes to MMA or the UFC, there's only, one belt. There's only one belt that you can, well, I'm not saying you can't hold just one belt, because, we've seen people in the MMA world who have held, more than one belt, like 2 belts, just because they're champions in 2 different weight divisions. But let's just say, like, for example, like the featherweight class in the UFC. If you're the featherweight champion, it's just one belt. It's just one belt to show that you are the featherweight champion. There's no other, like, belt that, says, oh, like, you're the Europe featherweight champion, or you're the, like, you're like the United, like, featherweight champion, or something like that. There's none of that. It's just one belt. That's all it is. Just one belt to show the world that you are the world, the UFC world featherweight champion. And yeah, that's that. So it's just one belt for each weight division. But yeah, and then meanwhile in MMA, the gloves that they wear when they fight, they wear fingerless gloves, so they can have their fingers out in MMA, and they are 4-ounce gloves. So really, really small gloves, and the only padding that they have in the glove is, like, from, like, I'm just trying to look at the camera here, from here and up. Like, that is, like, the only padding they have, like, barely going over their knuckles and just across, like, the top of their hand. And then, like I said, fingerless gloves. They got the open palm, like, right here, so you can see it. So really, and the reason why they have it like that was because MMA, mixed martial arts, there's wrestling, like I said, there's grappling involved, jiu-jitsu, and in order for these fighters to allow them to do these different techniques and fighting moves and stuff like that, of course they need to use their hands. They need to be able to have their fingers out so they can be able to grab their opponent, wrestle with them, put them in, like, a arm bar, or guillotine chokehold or something like that, so they need their hands when it comes to the different techniques of fighting. And then yeah, so that is those are the different, like, weight classes and the glove size for MMA right there. And then let's get on to some honorable mentions here when it comes to boxing and MMA, because there are plenty of names out there, that people may have heard of, or may know. If you are, of course, for those of you that are listening and are not familiar, with the boxing world, the MMA world, I'm pretty sure you may have heard or at least seen some of these names, or, like I said, heard or have seen these names or these people out there, and maybe you didn't even realize that, hey, these are, like, world, class, fighters. They're they're celebrities. They're very famous people. Hold on one second, sorry. But let's see here. So let's get on with this. So honorable mentions here. So for boxing, I'm sure all of you have heard of this name. One of the biggest names out there in boxing, Muhammad Ali. I mean, without doubt, one of the greatest boxers of all time. You know, the king of the ring. You know, whatever. He is, he is the guy. He is the biggest name in boxing. And then we have guys like Mike Tyson. I don't know if you've heard of him. I mean, easiest way to know the guy. I mean, he's got a tattoo now on the side of his face. That's Mike Tyson for you. One of the biggest, meanest heavyweight champions in the world. Other names, you got Oscar De La Hoya. You got Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Saul Canelo Alvarez. Like I said, Tyson Fury, Ryan Garcia, Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua. I'm sorry. Then you have like Tommy Fury, Terrence Crawford. Let me think. Devin Haney, Vasily, or no, is that how you pronounce his name? Like, Vasily Lomachenko, something like that. Yeah, he's from Ukrainian boxer. So maybe you've heard of some of these names before, and all these names that I just mentioned, big shout outs to all of them. Big shout outs to all these fighters, all these boxers, because they are one of the biggest names of the sport, and because of them, they are helping grow and growing the sport of boxing. Like they're just so entertaining to watch, them fight in the ring and everything. And I've seen all of these fighters, all the names that I just mentioned. I've seen not almost all of their fights, but I've seen most of their fights. And every time I watch them fight, it's so mesmerizing to me. It's so it's just so eye-catching that I just can't take my eyes off of it. Like I get so into it that like I feel like I'm actually, I'm there, like I'm in the crowd, I'm sitting down, I'm watching this in the sidelines, watching these fighters, go at it with each other and freaking, try to, knock each other's heads off. But yeah, I mean, these are some of the biggest names in boxing. So I mean, hey, you may, they might be your neighbor. You may live, in their country, their state, wherever they live. So hey, be on the lookout for them. Be on the lookout. But yeah, so and then continuing on, some honorable mentions for the MMA world. So some honorable mentions from the MMA world. Sorry. So we have. So I mean, honestly, when it comes to MMA, I can name a lot of fighters. I can name a lot of fighters because when I first started watching combat sports, I came across MMA first before I really caught on to boxing so much. Because I mean, MMA to me, honestly, when I saw MMA for the first time, I thought that this was insane. I thought it was crazy that, you got two fighters, freaking all cut up, bleeding from their faces, and yet they're still, freaking punching each other back and forth. It's insane. But anyway, so honorable mentions for the list of MMA. And some of these fighters that I mentioned, they're some of my favorite fighters to watch. Big shout outs to them. And, hopefully I can interview them one day or announce them fighting or heck, even get them on this podcast, for crying out loud. Like, I would love that. That would be a dream come true. But anyways, on with the list here. So we got one of my favorites. One of my favorites at all-time legends, Chuck the Iceman Liddell. Anderson Silva, Brock Lesnar, Forrest Griffin, Lyoto Machida, George St. Pierre, Quentin Rampage Jackson. You got Tito Ortiz, Rashad Evans. Let me see here. More modern fighters now. Brandon Moreno, Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, Sugar Sean O'Malley, Justin Gaethje, your current and reigning BMF champion. If you don't know what BMF means, look it up. I don't want to say it in this podcast. We're gonna keep it PG-13 here, or just PG. You got John Jones, the GOAT, Daniel Cormier, Patty the Batty Pimblett, one of my mom's favorite fighters. You got current bantamweight champion Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, George Masvidal, I don't know, Robbie Lawler, Nate Diaz. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there in the fighting world, you guys know who the Diaz brothers are, Nate and Nick Diaz. So yeah, those are some just honorable mentions of those fighters. So, I mean, the list goes on and on and on of so many, great names in the fighting world. I mean, heck, I'll even throw in Israel Adesanya, Yuri Prohaskis, Sean Strickland. I mean, there's just so many great names out there in the MMA world that, I mean, it's crazy because honestly, when it comes to boxing and MMA, and boxing, I feel like, I believe it is that boxing is, it's like a rich sport, boxing, you know? Like, you gotta have money really to like be able to not only like, of course get the good equipment, but to like, to have the sponsors to back you up, to be able to, be able to fly to the different countries, to the different states to, compete in the sport of boxing, to sign up for it. There's just so many things that, are taken, into effect when it comes to the sport of boxing, so much money is involved with it. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of money involved with, MMA too, because there's still a lot of money involved in it. But for boxing though, there is just like so many things that you have to take account for, that it just racks up, dollar signs everywhere, And as sad as it is, like when it comes to boxing, you know, of course, I mean with any sport, seriously, with any sport, you know, you always, like, any athlete wants to make a name for themselves, They want to, have the jersey, they want to have their name on the back of their jersey, inside of, sports stores. They want it to sell out. They want people, to scream their name whenever they see them, They want to be known as that guy, they want to be him. They want to be him, they want to be the guy. But in the sport of boxing though, you can, it's like you can, win 3 fights in a row. You could be like, the biggest guy, right? And, biggest rising star out there, biggest name in a row. And then it's like, if you're like on a good winning streak and then you lose 2 fights, then people just don't like see you as like a big name anymore. Like, you may have a good record, so you may be 3-2, but just because you lost 2 fights in boxing, people like don't really see you anymore as like, the like a good boxer, like as that guy, I mean, as sad as it is, I mean, it's true. I mean, it honestly is true. I mean, look up other articles, look up, fighting critics, look up, things like that, and hear what they have to say, because I've read some of them, and it's honestly messed up just to see what they have to say to these fighters, who train so hard for, the sport of boxing, and, all the work, all the effort they put into it, the sacrifices that were made, to be able to like to fly over here to the US or something to compete, in the sport. And then they start off doing well, they win like maybe their first 4 fights, and then, they lose 2 fights, after that. And then people don't take them seriously anymore. And then, in order for people to consider them even a good fighter again, then they have to win another like 3 to 5 matches, just for people to recognize them again. So it's a lot of like, like, it's a biased sport, honestly, a little bit. Like, boxing is just, it's very harsh. It is a very harsh sport, boxing, not just with the fans and the critics, but like just almost everything about it, like the promoters and stuff like that. Like, it is just, it's insane. It's insane, like how how it like turns and everything like that, how like it revolves around, the people and stuff like that in the world of boxing. It's just crazy. It's honestly crazy. And then like with MMA though, it's like it's almost like it's almost flipped in a way, because like there are MMA fighters out there who may have like, more losses than they do wins, but yet it doesn't matter if they have more losses than wins. They could still be signed, to fight over and over and over again. And, they just need that one highlight moment, whether it's a knockout or a big upset, they just need that one good fight. And then people will start recognizing them, calling out their names and stuff like that, like wanting to see them fight again, after that just one good moment, like literally, for example, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Like, he came in, from the UFC. Like, he's from the UK, Paddy the Baddy. And he was, before he came to the UFC, he was a champion in the MMA over in the United Kingdom. And then UFC signed him. He came over to the US. And in his very first UFC fight, I mean, honestly, he was almost losing. Like, he was actually, like, punches were getting landed on him. He was getting rocked. And then all of a sudden, I think it was round number 2, he just flipped the switch and then just started throwing punches all over this guy, and got the knockout win. Like that was his highlight moment. And then after that first fight that he had, now everyone's calling, they made making chants for him now. Oh, Paddy the Baddy. Oh, Paddy the Baddy. Like, even my mom is chanting that name, after seeing his first fight. And, seeing, who he is as a person, not just as a fighter, but who he is in general as a person. And now Paddy the Baddy, he's on a 3-fight win streak right now, I think it's 4, but I think, or 3 or 4, something like that. He's coming up again a fight too soon. But like I said, all it takes is just that one fight, literally just that one fight. Like, for example, another one, Sugar Sean O'Malley, he was, he first got signed up to the UFC. He won, like, I think, like, his first 3 fights or something like that. First 3 fights in the UFC, won them all by knockout, TKO, whatever you want to call it. I think they just call it, TKO, knockout. And then, so then he, Sugar Sean O'Malley, he goes up against another MMA fighter by the name of Chito Vera. And he's from Venezuela. And so, unfortunately, during that fight, O'Malley, he injures his ankle. And so he injures his ankle, he's laying down, on the ground. And, Chito Vera is just, going, grounding, pounding on him, throwing hammer fists and stuff like that. And, O'Malley, he's not really, like, his ankle's hurt. But, none of the punches are really affecting him. Like he still wanted to fight. Sugar Sean O'Malley still wanted to fight. But he knew that, his body couldn't take it because he messed up his ankle. And so he ended up losing the fight. But just because he lost that one fight, some people were saying, like, oh, is the Sean O'Malley, bandwagon, has the train stopped, after this one fight? Are they not going to give him a title shot anymore, stuff like that? And then now look what happened now. Now, if you follow the UFC, look at where he's at now. Whoops, hit the mic there. Look at where he's at now. Chito Vera beat him. Okay, Chito Vera beat Sean O'Malley. But, people want to see a rematch of that fight because they thought that, they gave Chito Vera the win, but it was kind of unfair in a way because, technically, yes, he did win. The referee stopped the fight. Chito Vera was just nonstop throwing punches at, Sean O'Malley, and, he wasn't throwing anything back. He was just only defending himself. And, if he would have kept on going, then maybe, he would have, hurt Sean O'Malley. But, in a way, it's like he didn't really beat the guy. The guy hurt himself. He fell down to the ground, and that was the end of the fight, But what I'm trying to say here is that even after that, O'Malley came back. He won three more fights after that. Yeah, 3-4 more fights after his loss to Chito Vera. He comes back still, knocks out more people, gets, brutal wins. And, and not only that, but at the exact same time as O'Malley is, coming back and winning, Chito Vera is on a win streak as well. Chito Vera is, still beating, fighters like Dominic Cruz and stuff like that. And, so they're both on like a win streak right now. But yet at the same time, people love Sugar Sean O'Malley so much that they wanted to see him go for the title. They wanted to see him fight. And that's one of the big things one of the biggest differences when it comes to MMA and boxing. And boxing, the fans can say whatever they want. The fans can say, oh, we want to see this fight. We want to see this fight. But, sometimes the promoters, they don't want that. They don't give it to the fans. Meanwhile, in MMA world, in the UFC, if the fans want to see this fight, the UFC will give them that fight. Like, they'll give them the fight. Like, after Sugar Sean O'Malley defeated Peter Yan, everyone wanted to see O'Malley now for the title. Everyone wanted to see it. Meanwhile, Chito Vera, he's over here on the other side, saying, like, I deserve, more of a title shot than O'Malley. I mean, for crying out loud, I beat the guy. Technically, he didn't, like I said. But, I mean, still, it shows on record that he beat O'Malley. So, Chito's over here, saying, like, hey, I should be fighting for the title instead of O'Malley because I beat the guy. Like, if I could beat the guy, then I could definitely beat, the champion. But that's not what the people wanted to see. People wanted to see Sugar Sean O'Malley fight. And that's what they got. UFC accepted it. They said, you know what? O'Malley wants to fight for the title. The fans want to see O'Malley fight for the title. So let's give it to them. So that is why O'Malley went up against Aljamain Sterling in like the past UFC fight. I think it was like UFC 292 or something like that. And O'Malley, I mean, I could probably roll the clip right here. O'Malley knocked out TKO's Aljamain Sterling. Round number 2. One of the cleanest slip right hands that you'll ever see. I mean, as he said, he basically copied it off of Conor McGregor when he fought against Jose Aldo Jr. I mean, they're pretty much almost identical punches. And they were just the cleanest right hands that you'll see. And as soon as O'Malley hit Sterling with that right hand, you just see him drop. Immediately drop to the bottom of the ring. And, I mean, it was game over there. It was just game over. And so now, Sugar Sean O'Malley, he is the current, what weight class is he in? I think he's the current flyweight champion right now. I think O'Malley is the current, not flyweight, bantamweight. He's the current bantamweight champion in the world for the UFC. And so, yeah, I mean, I love O'Malley. I love Sugar Sean O'Malley. I mean, he's an Arizona boy, so Arizona represented. But I mean, and now, O'Malley, he's over here calling out Chito Vera because now people want to see the rematch. Now people are asking to have O'Malley versus Chito Vera, part 2, whatever, because, people are like, okay, O'Malley's now the champion. He's the biggest dude right now in the bantamweight division. Now we want to see the rematch with Chito Vera because, the first fight, it was honestly like, it was like a fluke. It's like, people didn't see it as like, okay, there was no real winner in the first fight between Vera and O'Malley. There was no real winner. So now let's settle it again, 1v1, bantamweight title on the line for the UFC. And, let's see who is, the baddest guy in that weight division. So we'll see. They haven't announced any fights between O'Malley and Vera yet, but we will see. We will see soon enough. But I mean, talking about fights, upcoming fights, let's see here. So upcoming fights right now. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the upcoming fights. So by the time this video goes up, I mean, it might be uploaded right now today, which is the 13th of October. So it might be uploaded today, later in the evening, or it might be uploaded tomorrow on, by the time you're watching this video or by the time it's recorded, by the time I am recording this, it could be posted tomorrow, which is going to be October 14th, which is a very exciting fight that I'm going to be watching. It is the Misfits Series X DAZN KSI versus Tommy Fury. And for those of you that don't know or are new to it, so the Misfits Boxing Series X DAZN, it is a promotion that was created by KSI, who is a very popular YouTuber from the UK, part of a group called the Sidemen. Shout out to the Sidemen. I'm subscribed and I love their videos. They are a hilarious group of laddies from the United Kingdom. And KSI, he is one of the members of the Sidemen. He is a pro boxer. He's considered a pro boxer. And he's on a winning streak right now. And, and he's a YouTuber. I mean, he's a YouTuber boxer, of course. If anything, now in today's world, I'm sure a lot of, kids, the younger generation or the newer generation, or even, still like, Gen Z people like me, they're now following combat sports because of YouTubers, because they're competing now in boxing in this new promotion, series by, by KSI. And now people are getting interested now into, the fighting world, all thanks to these YouTubers, and it's good because it helps grow the sport. It's really good. And I love watching these fights. I love watching these YouTubers fight, honestly, just because in my head, it makes me go, man, I mean, I've already got some training in this. Like, maybe I could step in the ring just for one time. Just step in the ring and just throw a punch at someone just to get that thrill feeling of just, I'm going to hit someone and not get yelled at for it or not get in trouble because of it. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe you'll see me, one day in a ring, for a fighting promotion or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm willing to do it. So, I mean, hey, Misfits series, if you're watching this, I will definitely do it. If you guys have an opponent for me, as long as it's in a good weight class for me, we'll say something between like, I don't know, like the 155 to the 175 pounds or something like that, like that's around the weight class that I'm in. If we could do something like that, if we could pull off something like that, I'll do it. I'll sign the papers. I don't care. I'll do it. Heck, I don't care if I don't fight in it. I'll be the ring announcer of Misfits series. Or for people watching this, tag me for Misfits X DAZN series. Tag me in it. Shout me out to them. I'll be the ring announcer. I'll be their sideline commentary guy, whatever it is. I'll do it just because it's fun and I enjoy doing it. I love this series and everything like that. So, like I said, KSI versus Tommy Fury, that's tomorrow. Misfits series X DAZN. You can catch the fight on ESPN Plus, I believe, or also on the DAZN app. It is a pay-per-view, so you do have to pay for it in order to watch it. But there is prelims to the fight. I don't know if those are free, the prelims, but I know that the main event card or the main card, that is a pay-per-view, so you do have to pay for it. And then, I mean, that basically all the upcoming big fights that I'm announcing, all of them are pay-per-view events, so you do have to pay for these events. But I mean, that is the fighting industry, that is the fighting world, because you're helping pay these fighters, for buying these pay-per-views. So that is one of the big upcoming events, like I said, October 14th. So by the time you may see this video, by the time it's uploaded, or hey, if you're watching this in the later future, sorry, you missed out on the fight, but I'm pretty sure they're going to upload the highlights or upload even the fights in general, like the full fights on YouTube, just because DAZN is cool like that. So yeah. And then let's see here. So after that, another big boxing fight coming up, which is a very, very exciting boxing match coming up. It is the Battle of the Giants. It is Tyson Fury, Tyson the Gypsy King Fury versus Francis the Predator Ngannou. Now, for those of you that don't know who any of them are, so Tyson Fury, he is the world heavyweight boxing champion of the world. The biggest name, he is one of the biggest names right now in boxing. And his opponent, Francis Ngannou, he was one of the biggest names in UFC. He was, quote unquote, was the former world heavyweight champion of the world in the UFC. But ever since he left the UFC and is now with the PFL, which is another MMA promotion, the Professional Fighting League, he's with them now. He hasn't fought yet for them. I don't know if he will. Right now, he's just signed with them. But now he is going in the boxing ring. He's putting on the gloves like that, and he is fighting against the world heavyweight champion. So it is a battle of the giants. You have the world's best boxer versus the world's best MMA fighter in a ring. Now we've already seen something like this happen before. We already have. For those of you that don't remember, or for those of you that never heard or seen it, there was one time a fight where the world's best boxer in the world faced off against the world's best MMA fighter in the world. It was none other than Floyd Money Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. That fight was very good. It was very entertaining because, if you think about it, I mean, if you look at it on paper, it's like, okay, well, Conor McGregor is an MMA fighter. Like, what does he know about boxing? Well, most of his wins in MMA have come by knockout, which, if you knock a person out, I mean, that's with your fist. I mean, you can knock a person out with, your legs by kicking them. But with Conor McGregor, most of his knockouts have been with his fist. So he's got power. He's got knockout power. He can drop someone. So it looked like a very good fight. And it was a very good fight. A very, very entertaining fight between Conor McGregor and Floyd Money Mayweather. I mean, I watched the fight. It was great to watch. I mean, Conor McGregor, he's got, the fancy looking outfit, I mean, for crying out loud, his cornermen were wearing, basically, vests of tie and everything like that, looking dapper and professional. And then, meanwhile, on Floyd Money Mayweather side, his corners, wearing like sweaters and jackets and stuff like that, the money team. But like I said, great fight, very entertaining, very interesting to watch. But in the end, the experience, and the whole, and, the man who basically was like considered the best boxer in the world, Floyd Money Mayweather, came out on top, defeated Conor McGregor. I believe it was at round 10. He defeated Conor McGregor. I think it was just by TKO pretty much. But it was a great fight. Great fight. Both fighters, got respect for each other after that. And I mean, it was one of the biggest, boxing events in the world. And now basically it's happening again. Now this is just, with two different people this time. But, again, it's like, you got someone from the UFC, mixed martial arts, who has insane knockout power. I mean, maybe I'll put a clip here of one of Francis Ngannou's knockouts, just so you could see his insane power. And then you have Tyson Fury, who also has insane knockout power. I'll probably put a clip here or something like that, so you could see, how this fight is almost balanced out in a way, because both of these fighters, they have the ability to knock out one another. But it all just depends on whether if it's, going to be experience that pays off from Tyson Fury, or if it's just going to be the raw, insane power and the defense of Francis Ngannou, who's going to come out on top. So it's going to be an insane fight. And this fight takes place on October 28th. It's going to be, I believe it's taking place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So, well, from my understanding, what that means is that the fight, it may be nighttime over there, but it's going to be daytime here in America. So we may have to wake up early in the morning to watch this fight. But, me being me, and I love, boxing, and I love the sport of the fighting world, I'm probably going to wake up at probably 4 in the morning just to watch this fight, which I don't care. I'll do it. I'll do it to watch this fight because I want to see it. And then another fight that's coming up. He's one of my favorite boxers in the world. I follow him and I love him so much. People actually say he looks like me in a way. I honestly don't really see it. Maybe there's a little similarity in there, but I don't really see it. But it is none other than Ryan Garcia versus Oscar Duarte Jurado. That fight takes place on December 2nd, and I believe that fight is in Texas. I'm not 100% sure on that. I have to look at the card again, the promotion poster card, whatever. But that fight takes place on December 2nd. Ryan Garcia once again versus Oscar Duarte Jurado, and I'm excited to see that fight because this is Ryan Garcia's next fight ever since he had an unfortunate loss to Gervonta Davis a few months ago. And now Ryan Garcia, he's with the new trainer, new training program and everything like that. So we will see a new Ryan Garcia, in my opinion, a new reborn Ryan Garcia. I don't know if he'll be, better, if he's going to be stronger, faster, stuff like that. But the thing with Ryan Garcia, the way I see him, he is very, strong-minded. He is very committed to the sport, and he wants nothing to stop him. He wants nothing to be in his way. I'm sure he's going to want a rematch again with Gervonta Davis, but it probably will take more time. And with Ryan Garcia, in my opinion, it's not that he hasn't had, tough opponents, because he has had tough opponents. I mean, before Gervonta Davis, he fought another fighter who dropped him. He dropped Ryan Garcia, But then Ryan Garcia came back and still won the fight. That fight that Ryan Garcia had against, I believe the guy's name was Luke Campbell. He was a gold medalist in the 2012 Olympics for amateur boxing. He became pro. He was a rising star, and then he fought off against Ryan Garcia, and he was defeated by Ryan Garcia by a vicious body shot. And body shots in boxing, it is very painful. It knocks the wind out of you, and you could even break ribs because of it. But Ryan Garcia defeated Luke Campbell, and after getting dropped as well. And so a lot of people after that fight, saw Ryan Garcia as like, okay, well, this guy, okay, like, he gets dropped, comes back, and then beats the guy. He makes him, beg to stop the fight because he's down on two knees trying to get the air back in his body, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't continue on. So, I mean, it was a statement win for Ryan Garcia, a huge statement win for him. But then after a couple of fights after that, then he fought against Gervonta Davis, and then he got dropped twice. One with a left hook from Gervonta Davis, and then another one, a body shot to the ribs from Gervonta Davis, and that was the end of the fight. And I mean, honestly, there was a couple rounds that looked like, maybe Ryan Garcia has a little chance, but again, with the experience and with, honestly, the speed and the power from Gervonta Davis, that's what beat Ryan Garcia in the end, I mean, Gervonta Davis, he's a well-experienced fighter, and he's got a good technique. I mean, don't get me wrong. For as small as Gervonta Davis is, he's got very good boxing technique. And, that's another reason why I believe like that he won that fight against Ryan Garcia. He just has that better fighting technique. But we'll see. Once again, we'll see. December 2nd, we'll see if, we're going to see a new Ryan Garcia. But that's for boxing. And then meanwhile, for MMA, upcoming MMA fights, big ones, you have UFC 294, Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2. And that will take place on October 21st. And with this fight, it is very interesting because these two have fought before, hence why there's a 2 at the end of this fight card. Makhachev and Volkanovski, they fought before in the UFC, and Volkanovski, this fight is taking place in the lightweight division in the UFC, which is the 155-pound division. Volkanovski, he moved up in class because Volkanovski, he's in the featherweight class. Volkanovski is the featherweight champion. And then, he moved up to 155 to try to not only to try to beat Makhachev, but also to get 2 belts. He wants to hold 2 belts, not only one for 155, but for the 145 pounds, for the lightweight and what is it? Flyweight? Yeah, or lightweight and featherweight. Lightweight and featherweight. That's what it is. Yeah. So, but Makhachev, he was supposed to fight someone else by the name of Charles Oliveira. However, unfortunately, Oliveira sustained an injury during training, so he had to step out of the fight. And now Volkanovski, with on 11 days notice, he's gonna step in and face off Makhachev again, for the lightweight belt. So if Makhachev wins, he doesn't take Volkanovski's featherweight belt because this fight is taking place, or this fight is set in the lightweight division. But if Volkanovski beats Makhachev, he's going to have 2 belts around him. So, honestly, I still think it's going to be an interesting fight to watch, because this is the second time that they're going to, face off against each other. The first fight, honestly, it was one-sided, in my opinion. It was all Makhachev all the way. I mean, don't get me wrong. Volkanovski, right now, he is one of the top fighters in the UFC. I mean, the guy is on a high winning streak. He's basically beaten every top fighter in the featherweight division. I mean, I don't think no one right now can touch Volkanovski in the featherweight division. So, him wanting to fight for the lightweight championship, I mean, it's a good idea. It's a good stepping stone for him, because you're good. You're the best in one division. You defeated every other guy in there. So why not try to take over another, weight division? So I mean, it's a smart move. It's a smart move. It's, entertaining to watch, like I said. But do I think that he's ready to face off against, a guy who he's already lost to, who is great at boxing, great in wrestling, and he could submit, the heck out of you, put you in any type of chokehold or an armbar. It's going to be tough. It is going to be tough for Volkanovski, but he is a tough fighter as well. So it's going to be interesting to watch that one. And then after that, UFC 294, then you have UFC 295, which is Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. That will take place on November 11th. Once again, that is UFC 294. That is for the heavyweight champion of the world for the UFC. Of course, the last time we saw Jon Jones, just came back, basically out of a, what was it, like a 5-year hiatus. He didn't fight, he retired. Basically, he retired for 5 years. He didn't fight at all. But there was little hints, he kept, little hints here and there that he was going to come back and fight. And then pretty much when the announcement was made that Francis Ngannou, basically ended terms with the UFC and no longer was going to be fighting for them. So basically the heavyweight belt was vacant. Then Jon Jones stepped in and, said, hey, I'm back and I'm going to fight for the championship. And he did. He won, the UFC heavyweight championship belt. And so now he's the current and reigning UFC heavyweight champion. And now he's going up against Stipe Miocic for his first title defense as a UFC heavyweight champion. And Stipe Miocic, he is a former UFC heavyweight champion, but ever since, he has not fought since his loss to Francis Ngannou. So we'll see. We will see. Both fighters, they haven't fought in a while. Stipe, of course, hasn't fought longer than Jon Jones. So it's gonna be, again, another interesting fight to watch. I mean, heavyweights are always entertaining because they're heavyweight fighters. There's gonna be something going on. There's gonna be something happening with the heavyweight fights. Whether it's a knockout or something. Heavyweight fights are always interesting to watch because they're expect the unexpected when it comes to heavyweight fights. Then after that, you have UFC 296, which is Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, and that fight takes place on December 16th. And that fight's going to be very interesting to watch too, in my opinion. Out of these three fights that I called out, Makhachev, Volkanovski, Jones versus Miocic, this one's going to be the one that I'm really going to want to watch the most. Edwards versus Covington, because both of these fighters, again, they haven't fought in a while. Covington hasn't fought longer than Edwards. Last time we saw these two in the ring, Colby Covington defeated Jorge Masvidal, I believe. And then then try to catch my breath. And then Leon Edwards, his last fight was against Kamaru Usman. They fought twice. The second time was his last fight. He defeated Usman by unanimous decision. And so now we're gonna see what happens between these two, honestly. I mean, like I said, both fighters haven't fought in a while, but they are both very great fighters. Both have very strong power in the bantamweight division. And so, I mean, honestly, I don't know. Like, if I had to predict who's gonna win that one, honestly, I don't know why. I'm gonna say Covington. I'm gonna say Colby Covington defeats Leon Edwards. Honestly, it's gonna go down to his decision on that one. Honestly, I feel like there's gonna be highlights in the fight, where they almost get the knockout, they almost drop one another. But I feel like it's going to go all the way to the end. I would be very surprised if any one of these two fighters gets a win by knockout. I would be very surprised because they're both very good on defense. Especially Covington. But we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? And so with that, I think we're going to come to an end of this episode of the podcast. We're about to reach an hour mark here. But yeah, I mean, it's been great. It's been great doing this. I'm enjoying doing this whole podcast series. And, once again, a big thank you to you all out there, your supporters, my subscribers out there, so far that have been following me, on this series. It's helping me out a lot, and, I'd like to thank you all again for, spreading the word about me, to helping me, not only just grow this channel, but grow, me not only, in my career as an announcer, as a, sports announcer, a sports, a host, a ring announcer, things like that. And so we're just gonna try to continue on with this. We're gonna continue on. We're gonna try to make this, grow more, make it better. And yeah, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining me in today's episode of the Fasto Sports Podcast, talking about the combat sports world. And thank you all for liking and subscribing to the channel. Please be sure to leave a comment below. If you do not follow me on any of my social media accounts, I'll post down right here my announcing Instagram account. On that page, I have posted things from posts about me ring announcing for my local fights here, for my local promotion here, Tucson, Arizona, or going around doing rider interviews at at your BMX tracks. I mean, hey, for those of you watching, hey, you may not have seen your rider interview. It's on my Instagram page, so please go and check it out. Follow, show the love, show the support. But like I said, as always, thank you all so much for listening and watching, and I hope to see you all again in the next episode. Laters.